Today's gospel reading comes out of the 6th chapter of Mark, verses 30 to 34. And there were many different paths and avenues of messages in today's gospel reading, but I just want to focus on one because I think it's very timely for our world today. And there's this message right here. Take a look. How can I keep my family from becoming strangers? So many families nowadays are becoming estranged one from another. They don't know each other as once they used to. Extended families don't know each other as once they used to. And how can we keep that from happening? You know, I find it amazing sometimes when I go to funeral homes. It doesn't happen all the time, but a priest goes to the funeral home a lot. And I'll be at a funeral home and I will notice a mother or father introduce their 20-year-old son or daughter to their first cousin for the first night. And I always find that amazing what happens. You're seeing who your first cousin is, and you're already in your 20s. And then I might say, not only is this your first cousin, that is your uncle, that's your aunt. I would say to myself, how can that happen? How can you find out who your uncle or aunt is, your first cousin, when you're already in your 20s? Doesn't your family talk? Don't you get together? Don't you have conversation? Well, that's the key message of the gospel reading. Let's take a look at verse 30 of the 6th chapter of Mark. Now, verse 30 says this: the apostles gathered together with Jesus and reported all they had done and taught. What does that verse mean? First of all, it means exactly what it says it means. That the apostles gathered with Jesus. They reported to Jesus all they did, all they taught, all that was going on. Now, in order for that to occur, what had to happen first? The first thing that had to happen, the apostles were with Jesus, then they left Jesus, and then they came back. That's exactly what happened. You see, today's gospel reading, as I said twice already, comes from the 6th chapter of Mark. Now, you might remember that last Sunday's gospel reading also came from the 6th chapter of Mark. Last Sunday was verses 7 to 13. Today's verse 30 to 34. Now, in last Sunday's gospel reading, I'm just going to bring it back up to date. In last Sunday's gospel reading, Jesus gathers his disciples together, and then he sends them out 2 by 2, out of the mission territory. So they have been out in the mission fields preaching about Christ for some time. Now they've come back by the time we get to verse 30. And as they've come back, they haven't been with Jesus for a while because they've been out in the mission territory. They're going to tell Jesus all they did and all they taught. And Jesus is going to listen. They're going to share with Jesus a narrative. They're going to say, this is all we did. And Jesus is going to say, great, I'm dying to hear and I'm dying to listen to what you have to say. That's what families need to do. To talk, share the narrative, tell your story, and be willing to listen. Now sometimes, a lot of times, that isn't happening. When a family member asks another family member to take a look at a question, it's often asked, what's new? Now that's a loaded question. That would demand a lot of answer. You might say to yourself, you know, my family, we got up this morning and the kids went to school and the parents went to work and now they reconvene in the evening. They haven't been together for 10 hours. And so the mother says to the son or daughter, or the husband says to the wife, what's new? And what do you usually receive as an answer? This one right here. Nothing. Nothing's new. You mean to tell me I haven't seen you in 10 hours, you've been out in the world in 10 hours, and nothing happened? A cousin might say to a cousin, I haven't seen you in 5 months, what's new? And the response is, nothing? You know, you're not going to learn a lot about your family if that's the answer you're going to receive to a loaded question, if all they say is nothing. And then you might ask a family member this question: how are you doing? Now, that's a great question. It doesn't mean that you're trying to pry or you're trying to be nosy. Everyone nowadays is so worried about prying into someone's business, but these are family members. How are you doing? I want to know what's going on in your heart. I can see that you might look a little confused. Share with me what's going on. How are you doing? And when you ask a family member that question, what answer do you usually receive? Is this one right here. Busy. Busy. You might say to yourself, well, busy doing what? I'm busy doing busy things. I'm just busy. And you say to yourself, but I asked the question so I can learn about you. so we can sit here at the kitchen table, hopefully, and have conversation. And then in our conversation, I can tell you about your family and where your parents came from and about your extended family. And I can share with you stories about your first cousin, second cousin, aunts, uncles. Let us talk. That how are you doing? That's a conversation opener. That's an icebreaker. To hopefully a narrative. But sometimes the narrative doesn't happen. When you respond busy, well, you've gained no knowledge at all. The disciples didn't say to Jesus, we haven't been here for a while because we've been busy. But nothing happened. Jesus would have to say to himself, I got to go get another 12 guys. Because these guys aren't getting it done. And let's take a look at another question that many family members, where are you going? Now, sometimes I would surmise, parents might ask your son or daughter, where are you going? They might have a grown son or daughter. And the son or daughter comes home from school or work. And they take a shower and they put on some nice clothes and they put on perfume or cologne, and mom or dad's really interested. And then they ask the question, where are you going? And what answer do they usually get? Oh, going out. And parents have to be confused. I mean, when you get that for an answer, you have to say, well, I had a feeling you were going out. I did not think you took that shower, put on those clothes, and put on the cologne or perfume just to sit down and watch TV with the rest of us. I figured you were going out. I asked the question so I could find out where you were going, not to pry. But you might share with me you're going to this restaurant. I might be able to say I've been there before. Make sure you order this because it's really, really good. And then what happens? Conversation develops. Then the next day when you see the family member that went out and they told you where they were going, you could ask, well, how was it? What did you get? Did you enjoy your meal? Did you enjoy the service? Would you go back? It allows for conversation to develop. That's how you get to find out about family members. That's how you get close. When you ask the question and then share, not a one-word answer, but you share a narrative to tell the story. This is what's going on. And often what happens? When a family member is hurting and they need to talk, sometimes those little conversation openers, those questions, where are you going? And the person gives you an answer. And then you ask the question about their answer, and the conversation develops. But through that process, they might now feel comfortable to open up their heart. You know, Mom and Dad, I've been wanting to tell you this. I've been bothered by this issue. And as we've been traveling through this conversation, I'm now warmed up. They will tell you what I really need to tell you to get something off my chest. That's something off my heart. That's a powerful message in today's gospel. Verse 30 of the 6th chapter of Mark says this: the apostles reported to Jesus all they did and all they taught, and Jesus stood back to listen. They brought him up to speed. They had conversation with him. They let Jesus know this is what's been going on in our life since the last time we were together. That's why the apostles, the disciples, Jesus, they were close. They were tight. They were buddies. How did they get to be so close and so tight? Because they shared the story of their life. They told the narrative. And the person they were talking to listened. That's important to listen. Because if you ask a family member, where are you going? What's new? How are you doing? And they go to tell you in more than one word, and they tell you the narrative, and as they're talking, you have your phone under the table and you're messing around with it. You know, you can tell right away as you are talking to someone that they are there but they aren't listening. That they ask you a question, and then when you go to give an answer, they're doing something with their phone, and you say to yourself, they never wanted to know the answer. I'm not sure why they even bothered asking the question. It's a facade, it's phony, because they're not paying attention to my answer. And when you realize someone's not paying attention to your answer, what are you going to do quickly? Stop with the answer. You're not paying attention. Why should I give you the answer? And do me a favor, don't ask any more questions. Because I could tell that you really aren't interested in what I have to say. The gospel reading is powerful. If you want to, and hopefully you are close to your family, keep doing whatever it is you're doing to be close. But if you're not close and you actually can see your family members drifting away, what do you need to do? Ask the question. Hopefully they will give you a narrative for an answer. And when they begin to give you an answer, you need to stop everything you're doing and listen to what they have to say. Because when you listen, now you'll be able to maybe ask another question about what they're saying. And you'll really get close, and you'll really get tight, and your family will come back together. The apostles were very prudent. And I'll leave you with what they did, because it makes sense. And when you go home today, or tomorrow, or one day this week, or one day next week, you check it out, because it'll be in your Bible. Verse 30 of the 6th chapter of Mark. The apostles reported to Jesus all they did and all they taught. That was a smart thing to do. And Jesus decided to listen. And in doing that, they got close.